Of Chesterfield Township for Tuesday, January 25th at 7 p.m., 2022 at 7 p.m. Call the meeting to order. Could we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Take a roll call vote. We were notified today that Clerk Berry is unable to make tonight's meeting, and Trustee Vosberg has already indicated that she would not make it. She was on vacation. With that being said, they are excused. Clerk Niza, Deputy Clerk Niza, would you please call the roll?
Supervisor Kirsten?
Here.
Treasurer Elliott?
Here.
Trustee Anderson?
Here.
Trustee DeMink?
Here.
Trustee Joseph?
Here.
Item 4, approval of the agenda. Item 4A, Deputy Clerk Niza.
Approval of the agenda with addendum if necessary.
Motion to approve?
Support.
Motion by Trustee DeMink, supported by Treasurer Elliott. Clerk Berry, would you please call the roll?
Trustee DeMink?
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott?
Aye.
Supervisor Kirsten?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee Joseph?
Aye.
Item 5, we have presentations tonight, 3 of them that we would like to give. The first one, Ellen Clark. I don't want to move you to the bottom of the pile. You are first up. Would you please come forward? Treasurer Elliott, you have the honor.
Ellen, a big heart and deep commitment doesn't happen, but it's by choice. A heart has to choose to commit no matter what the trials and tribulations are, and this is a difficult commitment for people to do for those they know, but for someone like you, you make that sacrifice for a community. There is more gratitude than I could ever express in words, by me, by this board, and I believe by many of the residents in the community and those that know you. We are grateful for the countless hours, the tasks, but the personal sacrifice that you have made over the 44 years that you've made Chesterfield the fantastic community is today. As we approach your retirement this week, I am truly going to miss your stories about things and how they came to be, your wisdom, and your guidance. The crystal acknowledges, and it says, Ellen Clark, Deputy Treasurer, greatest of all time. I wouldn't be so like, whoo, she's the GOAT. It's truth. Don't take it just from me, but one of the representatives that she's worked with for a long time wanted me to read a note from him. He works for Huntington Bank. She might cry if she hears this. It says, it has been my privilege and pleasure to work with Deputy Treasurer Ellen Clark for the past 12 years as the representative of Huntington National Bank. Ellen's extensive knowledge, helpfulness, work ethic, dedication to serving her community, and delightful personality is an example for all deputies to aspire to. She is greatly admired and respected by her peers in the municipal treasurer's offices across Macomb County, but across our great state. This is true. My colleagues and I, who have enjoyed working with Ellen, will miss her and wish her a wonderful retirement filled with many years of happiness and good health. Ellen, we wish you lots of toes in the sand and sunshine and relaxation as you start your retirement at the end of this week. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you again, Ellen, and sorry to make you wait last board meeting. Presentation 5A, We have a presentation by Selfridge Air National Guard Base, General Munum. The podium and floor is yours. Welcome to Chesterfield Township, along with your staff and everyone with you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. This is actually, it's a little bit daunting, I got to be honest with you. I'm usually don't get nervous in front of big crowds, having a big organization. But this one I don't know, maybe it's the podium up there, but I appreciate it. It's an honor for me to be here today, and I really enjoy the privilege of being able to lead the fine airmen, your airmen of Selfridge Air National Guard Base. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we start. But first, let me just give you a little brief introduction. I'm General Mahman. Grew up in the local area. Actually grew up in Grosse Pointe. When I was a kid, went to Michigan State, served on active duty for just about 8 years, got out, and I joined the National Guard. I've been there ever since at Selfridge. And so this is my home, and I just love what we're doing out here. When I took command of the wing, my boss said I had 3 jobs. I was the commander of the air wing at Selfridge. I was the mayor of Selfridge, which you'll hear a little bit more about in the future, and I'm the ambassador for Selfridge. Last month I was talking with General Rogers about this, and I said, I think I'm doing pretty well on the first 2. The last one, I think I'm getting a solid C, maybe a C+ in ambassador duty, so this was my opportunity to try to raise my grade and come out here and talk to the community, and so you can see what we're doing out at Selfridge. Keep in mind, Selfridge has been around since continuously operating since 1917. It's one of the longest operating bases in the United States, and it's pretty remarkable, and it's really a critical cornerstone of our national security. So right now what I'm going to show you is a video that is put together. This is the world premiere of this video, so I think only a few people have seen it. And what I would like you to do when you're watching this video is try to look at 3 different things. One is the strategic, what we do from a strategic perspective for our country. Oop, almost. And the second, what we do for the state, and finally for the community, and we'll let it go. I got to make a shout out to my public affairs team here. You know, Phil and Bruce, they're here with me, giving me some backup, and I got to tell you, they put together some amazing products over there in public affairs, so I just cannot be prouder. And again, those are the great airmen of the 127th in there, and everywhere they've been, those are some pictures from international locations all the way down to local food banks here in the local area, and we'll get more in detail with that. So let me go into a little bit about the 127th Wing and what we are. Obviously, the group of airmen that you saw in the video can't have their leaders out here, and this is my immediate chain of command. I don't want to get into the names with everybody, but essentially I have a vice wing commander, a command chief, and then 5 groups organized underneath my organization, where all the men and women work. You can see there's a hole in the center there. The person has been selected for that job. He just doesn't know it yet, otherwise I'd put his picture up on the board, so I can't tell who that is just at this point. So when you look at the 127th Wing, I'm not going to go through read the whole mission statement, but I do want to throw out a couple key words there that are on that mission statement. That is community, state, and nation. Community, state, and nation. That's what our airmen, that's what your airmen are doing every day. They're serving our community, state, and our nation for whatever they ask us to do. The vision statement is very much of an infinite game type vision statement. There's no end to that. There's no saying we're going to get to a place at a certain point. This is more of a we're always going to strive to be the best. I always tell my the airmen of the wing that we have to earn mission, and in order to earn mission, we have to be the best at everything that we do. My 3 priorities up there are capacity, will, and organizational culture. From a military perspective, you have to understand everything that we do is about deterrence. We want to give our adversaries a moment of pause. So that's why we always want to be ready. And I heard a great definition once of what deterrence is, and that's capacity times will as seen in the hearts and minds of our adversaries. So that's where I got capacity as readiness, and will are the people that are out there. And then finally, we can't do anything without a proper culture. I'm every day trying to make Selfridge that workplace of choice, always striving to get to that, to be the best. You know, I have up there one word, family. That's one word to describe the culture that we aspire to, but other ones are professionalism, excellence, inclusivity, proud. The list goes on of what we have there. So moving on to the bigger part of Selfridge. Selfridge, when you think of it, normally most people look at Selfridge as the Air National Guard. You have to understand that, yes, the Air National Guard runs that base, but we have over 70 tenant organizations that call Selfridge their home. All in told, about 5,000 people, employees call Selfridge their home. In the 127th Wing, between my full-time and my part-time folks, we're only talking about 1,700, 1,800 people. So a majority of those other people that work there are tenant organizations. And as I said earlier, my boss told me that one of my jobs is the mayor. So as the person running the base, he calls me the mayor, and I have to make sure that I'm supporting those 70 tenants. Those tenants include the Army, the Navy, the Marines, Department of Homeland Security. We have Border Patrol, Air Marine Division, and Coast Guard. So 3 different divisions of Department of Homeland Security. Army Research Laboratories exist on the base, and again, all in told, about 5,000 people call that home. When you look at Selfridge from the Michigan perspective, we're the last major military installation in the state of Michigan. Okay, from the Air Force, you know, if you think about it, Wurtsmith is closed, Kinchlow is closed, K.R. Sawyer is closed. We're the last major installation. The Arsenal is out in Warren, but I believe the Arsenal is right around 300 acres, I believe is their size. We're 3,000 acres of property at Selfridge. With that, we are really in a strategic location for the country. We don't get hurricanes. We don't get earthquakes. We don't have a lot of issues that other areas might have. So we are really prime situated to be a local area for resources and domestic and national response if needed. We're close to lines of communication, including highways, railheads, and so forth. It is very, very important. In fact, during as you recall, during the Flint water crisis, Selfridge was the staging area for all the water that was being shipped to Flint at that time. I mean, we literally had millions of liters of water pass through Selfridge being stored there as it was being intermediately staged before it went up to Flint. FEMA recognized that. I don't think they realized the assets that we had until that happened. They came to look at the operation, and the FEMA region director for this region was just eye-opened, and she, I remember saying, we have to really look at our plans going forward and how we're going to leverage Selfridge. But all of that is due to the teamwork that we have. Again, if I just built that slide there so you can see some other things built: Civil Air Patrol, Air Force, Department of Homeland Security, Marines. All of that is here at Selfridge, which makes us truly unique. So let's look at the 127th Wing. I want to try to give you a few ideas of what we've been doing over the last year and a half at Selfridge. Our main major weapon systems are the KC-135 and the A-10, which is probably what you see the most. The 135, actually we have 100 people from the KC-135s right now deployed in the Pacific Theater. We have, in total, across the wing, we have over 200 members deployed around the world right now, and we have members in every continent with the exception of Australia and Antarctica. So your airmen, your Michigan airmen, your neighbors are all over the world right now, and I got to tell you, I'm absolutely proud of them, and I know you are too, as a great community friend to the north there of Selfridge. So other things that we have done. Numerous operations and deployments on the A-10s as well. Last year we did a green flag exercise out in Nellis. We had small deployments all over the country in what's called the ACE concept, which is Agile Combat Employment, where essentially we send out small groups to small locations and have them operate for several days. That bottom right picture was a great exercise that you probably saw this or heard about this summer. It actually got international news, where we were the first time that we can find where the United States landed modern jet fighters on a highway inside the United States. Now, we have done it in Europe, but we have never done it here in the United States. And I got to tell you, the state of Michigan has been amazing to help with that. And in fact, if you look at that little picture right there that I'm pointing, that's the sign marking that we're going to try to put on M32 out there. So we have T-shirts made, or we're going to have T-shirts made. But MDOT, the Michigan Department of Transportation, is just all over this. They were absolutely bent over backwards to help us, and we're going to try to get that those markers up on the highway as we go down. But again, that was a proof of concept, which we'll talk maybe a little bit more as we go forward here. Some other stuff that we have done this year, we deployed our medical teams to Sigonella, Italy, which is a Navy base out in Italy, and they were supposed to go there just to do some training, but the moment they got there, they were in the middle of the Afghan evacuation, and they literally treated hundreds of Afghani men and women that came flowing out of the country. I'm doing good on time. I'm going to tell a quick little anecdote. This was probably the most impactful deployment for our medical troop that they've ever had. They came home. They said this was the best thing they've ever done. One story was they were in this village, this makeshift village, and there was all these kids were just sitting around, and they weren't doing anything. And so two of my members went down to the BX, and they bought every coloring book and crayon they could. They took it to the camp, and they handed it to the kids, and the kids looked at it going, "What do we do with this?" They didn't know what to do. So they said, "Well, let me show you." They open up the crayons, they start coloring in a coloring book, and these kids' eyes lit up, and these kids just went to town. I mean, it almost chokes me up hearing this story when I hear it, but imagine that these young boys and girls have never grown up with a crayon in their hand, and the first time they see it is when your airmen who are deployed over to that side of the world are taking care of them. So I will say that the Navy was not happy with us because they began to write over all the walls there inside inside their area as well. So taking it down a little bit farther down to a state level, we have been engaged in state response with COVID-19 since the outset. We've been working at food banks, test centers, been giving vaccinations. During the Michigan dam failures, we were involved with that. Just to give you an idea, your Michigan Airmen have have administered over 479,000 vaccinations. They've put together 49 million pounds of food to be distributed. 36,000 tests administered all across the state to include veterans' homes and senior homes and in CVS parking lots. Just couldn't be prouder of what our men and women have done on the state level. Taking it down a little bit closer to the state or to the local level, that picture up there is a great picture of young Corbin, cancer survivor, or under cancer treatment, I should say. He had a Make-A-Wish, and we made him a pilot for the day. That was the most impactful, not only for him, but I think for the men and women of the organization. They just ate it up and absolutely loved it. We have an amazing base community council that represents Selfridge and Selfridge interests, over 200 members. In fact, we have some BCC members here today providing mutual support. Thanks for being a great airman, or a great wingman for me, so I appreciate it. Mutual aid calls. We call when the local areas call us, or we run when the local areas call us, and I know when we call you for help, you come running as well. Last year alone, we did 31 off-base mutual aid calls. 9 of those were here in Chesterfield. In fact, the last one was last Thursday, the 21st. We responded to an attic fire, and we doubled the fire response on the ground when we got there to help put the fire out. So it's about saving lives and safety to the community, and we're proud to be a part of that. Our Honor Guard has given over 397 funeral honors last year throughout the state of Michigan. Coast Guard on base, it's been there since 1966. They do all the search and rescue operations for Lake St. Clair, Lake Huron, and even Lake Michigan and Lake Erie as well. Last year, 296 search and rescue cases right out of Selfridge, 21 lives saved, 14 lives assisted. And then, as everyone here knows as well, Chesterfield Veterans Home opened here in March of 2021, which was a $76 million project for 44 residents and will employ about 180 Michiganders. One last thing to really briefly touch on with this is employment skills training, education benefits. Your Guard will give our young airmen, our young community citizens, if they want to join, some great opportunities. If they join, we can get college benefits either through the GI Bill or through the state programs. There's a lot to be said about that. Going out into the future, just a couple things that we're doing this year, a couple minor things, a couple more exercises as we're always getting into things, and a big one is the air show in 9th and 10th of July. Every year, every time we do an air show, it draws, there it says about 300,000 people across 3 days. Really, the primarily 300,000 is over 2 days. That first day is a practice day where it's mostly just military. And that does not include the over 100,000 people that we had on the boats, out on boats last time out in the lake. So it's a big draw and a big impact, I think, for the region as well, because as people leave here, they'll hopefully go to restaurants in Chesterfield and the surrounding areas. Our COVID response is mostly winding down right now from the state perspective, but again, we are planning another large-scale exercise this summer, and we're looking at another highway landing up in the UP on the Seney Highway on M28, just west of Shingleton. So I can give you a great briefing on that as we move down in the future. Last couple slides here, some highlights of some other things that happened. This is actually a really big deal. When you look at this picture here, this is in our innovation center. We have a joint all-domain innovation center where we're trying to fuse academia, military, and industry together to solve really tough problems for military action. But if you look at this group here, so I think everybody knows that person right there, that's Mark Hackle. Okay, standing next to him is Senator Stabenow. Next to her is Senator Peters. And then this person right here, you probably don't recognize, but that is the Honorable Dr. Kathleen Hicks, who's the #2 person at the Department of Defense. She's the Deputy Secretary of Defense. And she came to Selfridge to see the strategic importance of Selfridge Air National Guard Base. So that's a big deal for us. When you think of the literally hundreds of facilities around the globe In her first 3-4 months of service as the Deputy SecDef, she came to Selfridge Air National Guard Base. That's an artifact of us being, I think, a big deal in her mind. All right, last couple slides here. Going forward, those top 2 bullets there, trying to maintain that enduring fighter mission and that global mobility here at Selfridge Air National Guard Base. And we do that in partnership with everybody here. I mean, I really believe that we are a partner. We've been here since 1917. We've partnered with our communities for the last 100 years. I'm looking forward to this, to at least kicking off the next 100 years as my reign as the commander with all of you. This is your Air Force. This is what's in your backyard, and this is an amazing capability that we have here in the state of Michigan. So our motto is "We stand ready." We stand ready for anything that comes upon us. Now, I will tell you, my boss, General Rogers, says I need to be a shameless advocate of Selfridge. So I hope I did that today for you. I hope I raised my grade from a C a little bit, at least. So, and again, like I said earlier, I look very much forward to our next 100 years out there. And again, a shameless plug. I'm going to be very shameless for the air show. Did I say the air show's in 9 and 10 July? I'm going to say it there again. So with that, I think I took about 20 minutes, which is what I was allocated, but I am open to taking any questions from either the panel or the audience for a few minutes. If you have time, sir, I don't want to encroach on anything that you have.
I will ask as a board member, Trustee Joes.
Thank you. First, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate the overview, and it's good to see all the exciting things that are going on there. I was unaware of the many different tenants that you talk about, and so that's a tremendous number. I had no idea there were that many, so that was quite impressive. I was wondering if you, one, I have long list of questions, and I would like to put you on the spot and maybe reach out to you on a personal, to sit down with you and go over some of these, because we could be here for a while, and if you have some time, I'd love to sit and talk with you about some of the concerns we have. For the past year and a half, 2 members of our board have participated on the sustainability study that is going on. It was not directly connected to the F-35, but it was seen as a viable component necessary for any future consideration of the F-35, at least as it being a permanent home here at Selfridge. But January 14th of this month, I was made aware that there was a notice of intent regarding the impact for a foreign military sales pilot training center, in essence a permanent bed down, with Selfridge being considered along with, I believe it was Ebbing Air National Guard Base in Arkansas. And best I could kind of read on my own, it looked like foreign governments who are purchasing F-35s require substantial training, and that the sales of this aircraft has been kind of, I guess, patchwork in terms of how the training is administered and from what base. And this initiative would be a permanent, to locate a permanent training center. I think it was called a PTC, Permanent Training Center, with Selfridge and this Arkansas base being considered the 2 finalists. It looks like that process is going to be fairly quick, and one of the ingredients required to look at Selfridge is the environmental impact study. And I understand that on the first week in February, there's an opportunity for residents to participate and hear and talk about any concerns that they have regarding the environmental impact. And the biggest concern that I've heard, and I have, has to do with possible PFAS contaminant and the existing PFAS levels at Selfridge, and then what would happen and what will happen as the base potentially makes alterations, construction, or the expansion of the runway, or the increase of any impervious surface causing more runoff and potential PFAS contamination. And there's a whole string of questions associated with that, which really would take more time than we have tonight, but I was wondering if you could just generally speak on the concerns regarding PFAS and the possible expansions, not only for a training center, but perhaps a permanent home for the F-35 long range.
Okay, yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, but let me try to go through that first. Let's first talk about the F-35. So if you remember back, gosh, when was it, 2017, when they had the last F-35 bed down, we were a candidate. There's 5 locations that were selected. There was one preferred base, and then there was 4 alternates. Once that happens, and I'm not sure the law, how that works, but all 5 move forward into the next phase of getting an environmental impact study. So now fast forward to the foreign military sales, it's FMS, I'll say it for short. As we're selling F-35s, we're also selling the training that goes along with that. We were a candidate to pick up that F-35 training mission here at Selfridge, along with Ebbing Field. Ebbing was the preferred alternative, or the preferred candidate, and we're an alternative. Going forward, as in the law, as it states before, we're going to go through this whole environmental impact statement, again, just like we did in, I believe it was 2017 through 2019. I think it finally ended in 2019, as I recall. So that's the nexus behind the environmental impact questions that you have, and the open, and there will be, I believe it's on the 1st and 3rd, there's open, what's the word I'm looking for? Scoping meetings that are going to be open to the public on the 1st and 3rd, I believe via Teams, and I think that's all out in the ether right now, that's available for anybody to check in. Am I right with that, as far as the dates? Yes, okay. I did bring some of my environmental folks here in case they had some in-depth questions. So that's really it in a nutshell for the F-35. Now, I will say this, that we are a preferred alternative. So if something were to go very wrong with Ebbing Field, they could look to us and in turn bed this mission down. That's why they're doing the environmental impact study. I will also say that historically, once the Air Force or the DoD has made a decision on where they're going to bed down, they found the primary location, they have never come off. So I've never seen it. So do I anticipate us getting this FMS mission? I would say it's on the very low end of reality, in my view. I hope that in the future we can get an F-35 here, or the next generation air dominance, which is the fighter beyond that. Again, going back to one of my last slides where we have that enduring fighter mission here. So I hope through these processes that the DoD and the Air Force see the value proposition that Selfridge gets here. From a construction perspective, you know, we talked about it. I mean, it could be upwards of $100 million of military construction in order to bed down a new mission set here. I'm throwing that number out there. Don't hold me to that, please. But I'm just saying there is a lot to go along with that from a local economic perspective. Let's take a look what else was there. So that's what's driving the EIS, and that's what was driving. Does that answer that part of the question?
Yes, it does. I was curious, though, this summer, and I'm not sure for what purpose, and, you know, I understand the bed down EIS this go around this summer, and I don't know if part of your team is an individual by the name of Mark Pash.
Mark Pesce is right here.
Pesce,
yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I had some correspondence just by email with Mr. Pesce. In July, there was an environmental impact study with an opportunity to weigh in, and I was real anxious and hopeful that perhaps we could have an entire town hall maybe dedicated to this particular issue, because every time there's any discussion about an operation change, you will, seems like there's an environmental attachment. So there's a lot of information out there. And I appreciate you clarifying the preferred status. When I first saw it, it looked like, you know, there was a shot. There was a two-base race, but it sounds like they've already designated one, and unless something goes wrong with that preferred.
Right.
So I appreciate the explanation there. Is there any interest in having a town hall type meeting here in the township to talk about environmental issues?
I'm not opposed to it. Again, I need to raise my grade, so yeah, I would be very happy to discuss that as we're going forward. But if you want me to, I can touch briefly on PFAS and the issues there, and I do have my experts here if they can clarify anything that I might not answer for you. If you
Yeah,
would
that'd
like
be
me to.
great. And specifically as it relates to PFAS, what I was interested in mostly is, do we see any increased potential for PFAS runoff with increased construction at the base, or some of the things that are being discussed? And do we have any movement from previous environmental studies that have looked at the levels of PFAS and moving towards now abatement, I guess, is probably the best way to put that?
It's a great question. And actually, yes, what we're doing, first of all, let's say this. Everything that we're doing with PFAS, I will tell you that I believe Selfridge and the Michigan Guard in particular are really leading the way with PFAS and mitigation going forward. We have been out, and that started with my predecessor. When this first came to light, he got out in front of it very, very quickly, and the state really has helped out. We have been in lockstep with Eagle the entire way through this issue. Keep in mind, PFAS, these forever chemicals, as they're called, they're everywhere. They used to be in hamburger wrappers when you go to the fast food. I'm not going to say which ones because it was all of them. They were wrapped in that paper. So it has really been identified from the perspective of the AFFF, which is primarily used. Well, actually, for us, it's almost exclusively used for firefighting, for on the airfield, if we were to have an issue with an airplane with jet fuel and everything else. So we do have areas of elevated PFAS in the soil, and as water comes down, as it rains, it migrates, it gets into the drainage ditches, and then it slowly works its way off the base. What we have done, though, we have two facilities right now. It's two facilities on Selfridge. I know one for sure. Did we get the second one already? Yes, it is two. Where we have basically diverted all the water that's being collected from the contaminated areas. So if you think of the base as quadrant out in several, sectors where the drainage, where the water goes during rain, certain areas go to certain central points and then get levied off the base. We're filtering all of that water that comes out of that comes through those drainage ditches, and then it gets put back into the drainage system before it gets pumped into either Lake St. Clair or into the Clinton River. So we have reduced the PFAS, the amount of PFAS that is in that water going off the base considerably as a result. Is it at zero? No, it's not. And I don't know if we have the technology anywhere to get it to zero. But we are really leading the way with trying to mitigate all of that. Mark, did I get that correct? Is there any other comment? Just to phone a friend. Did I leave anything out of that to answer his question?
Just to add to specifically your concern about.
Sorry. Yeah.
Just to address your specific concern about like new parking lots or new development, that's not going to affect the amount of PFAS that's coming off the base, because the PFAS is in the soil. And so if you put a parking lot over a PFAS site, it's going to actually improve your water quality.
When you have any impervious surface, you will have water will distribute back. When you have an impervious surface, so a parking lot, buildings, additional runway space, that groundwater will not go into that exact area. It'll run out. You're saying that the impervious surface over a PFAS contaminated area will actually seal the PFAS below it?
In certain circumstances, yeah. It depends on where the PFAS concentrations are, if they're right up near the surface or if they're further.
In the areas identified as having a higher level of PFAS, is there any construction in those areas? Or are those areas more isolated, and are we trying to then collect whatever runoff we can get from those areas that we know are contaminated?
A lot of those areas are out on the airfield, sir.
Okay.
And so they're in less developed areas. So we're placing our treatment systems strategically to filter out the highest concentrations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to say again that we're leading that effort in the state of Michigan. I know other states have not even, come off center with that at this point. And I got to tell you, the Guard Bureau has been 100% behind us, and what we're doing is really kind of unique in that way. It's interesting when you talked about putting caps. Probably there's actually one area where I could see us doing that on the airfield where it could be considered capped, because I have an expansion plan there for something else. But that's a whole nother side discussion that we could talk to offline, and I'd show you what I mean. So, any other questions for you, sir?
Always, but I talk too much, and I've talked enough already, so I'll just look forward to connecting with you offline if I can.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I said I have tons more, but I talk too much, and I'll look to
Yep.
connect with you offline.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate you coming here tonight.
Absolutely. What we could do is we'll get you out at Selfridge and
Love that.
and
Thank you.
show you around. So, okay,
Appreciate it.
fantastic. Any other questions from the?
Trustee
I'd like
Domingue.
to say?
General, I'd like to thank you for coming tonight and for the information, and the presentation and the video I think is great. And I wish you the best of luck, and hopefully we can have further dialogue later on, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you.
No further question? Treasurer Elliott.
I just want to thank you for coming. I want to thank the members of Base Community Council and the Macomb County Chamber for coming out today and sharing all this great information. And I can't wait till July 9th and 10th.
Like it.
Thank you.
General Munham, you offered to answer questions from the public. Are you willing, or?
Sure, if there's any,
If there's public
I'm on your
question,
time,
If you would,
so.
go over to the mic so we can hear you and make it available to you.
Hi, my name's Paul LaFata. I live at 48055 Mather, Chesterfield Township. Last time I spoke out about what was happening at Selfridge about the environmental issues and the F-35, I was accused of not being patriotic. I'd like you to know that I served my country in Vietnam from 1968 all the way through to 1969, and I was a combat veteran. I know what it's like to serve my country. I'm very patriotic. But I've also lived in Chesterfield Township for 47 years, built 2 homes here. I like where I live. I don't want to have to move. And with what I'm seeing and what I'm looking at when I research what happens is there's uglies happening in Burlington, Vermont because of the F-35s. There's potential lawsuits right now in Madison, Wisconsin because of the F-35s. In Vermont, the ES study, from what I get from the research, wasn't what it should have been. And the real reason, if you do enough research, is because of political blackmail. The state congressman blackmailed the DOD in Washington not to approve their funding unless they get what they want for their state. And that's how it wound up in Burlington, Vermont. That's how it wound up in Madison, Wisconsin. You can go online and you can research it. It's there. If you want, give me a shout and I'll point it out to you. If you look at the ES studies that were done, they're not enough to protect the residents from noise. They're not enough to protect the residents from crash and encroachment zones. And to put an F-35 in Selfridge Air Force Base in a dense population adjacent to it, like Chesterfield Township, where I have lived for 47 years, and disrupt the residents where they live, the quality of how they live, isn't really conducive. And it seems like every politician, including Senator Peters, has blackmailed the DOD to get something for his vote, including the A10 extension at Selfridge, which I don't have a problem with, and on second consideration for basing the F-35As, political blackmail. There's every one of the politicians in the state of Michigan is on record with the Secretary of the Air Force for their support. None of them live in Chesterfield Township. None of them will sacrifice their quality of life. Somebody needs to take in consideration the residents of Chesterfield Township. They talk about $100 million or $1 billion. When I ask, what's the dollar value that's going to come to Chesterfield Township? Never get an answer. Go on the DOD website for contracts let by zip code. When you go through all those, you'll find out that Chesterfield Township practically gets nil, nothing, hardly anything. The largest contractor shut down in 2008. So I'm trying to understand, we have environmental problems there. It's on record. You can look at the Michigan DNR excuse me, information, and it's way above the levels that are allowable by the state of Michigan. If you look at the 27th Wing
A few more seconds, Mr.
study,
LaFawn.
what?
15 more seconds.
Did he have a, this isn't,
Public comments, 2 minutes.
yeah,
And
okay.
he's kind enough to answer.
Have me hauled away. This is the first time any resident has had a chance to speak on an F-35 or what's happening at Selfridge, and you want to stop me. Thank you.
This is a presentation, so if you had specific questions for him, you could ask him questions. Okay. General, do you want to respond to those questions?
I just want to say, sir, thank you for your service to our country. I appreciate it. You know, if that's something that hasn't been said to you before as a Vietnam veteran, I thank you for serving. I really, truly do. I will say, yes, there were lawsuits in Madison and Burlington. You know, those are different communities altogether. I don't know if I see Macomb County in the same as I would see the communities around Burlington nor Madison. I'm not trying to make any differences there, but you know, during the EISs, there was very little public comment negatively toward the F-35s here at Selfridge, but it was pretty boisterous at other communities. When we had F-16s, it was the F-35 is slightly louder on takeoff than an F-16, slightly quieter than an F-16 on landing. So it's about comparable. We had F-16s here for 20 years, so I don't know if that factors into your decision making. And I think that's actually, you bring up a very interesting point with the local community impact with contractors. Yes, contractors. I think when you look at DoD contracting, I'm not sure how they put it out there, but I would imagine they're looking at the big industries like General Dynamics and so forth. When I'm looking at is local contracts, construction, and those types of things that will be happening here at Selfridge, employing local people when those things happen. So I don't know if we can compare those, but I think it's an interesting discussion to have. Thank you.
Thank you, General.
Joe Kadich, I live at...
Mr. Cage, if this is a presentation, so if you have specific questions, we'll take them. But if you're going to make a statement that
Well, it's
don't have
addressing
questions, I'm going to have to
some of
interrupt you.
his stuff that he brought out in his presentation.
Okay. If they're
Number
specific-
one was the PFAS. Paul got into it, and basically I brought in what was printed last year in the Voice about the amount of PFAS. And additionally, I talked to the people from Eagle last year and asked them how it was coming with their controlling the PFAS or getting rid of the PFAS at Selfridge. And I think I said to this board before, their answer was, how much time do you have? It didn't seem like there was getting much cooperation or doing what needed to be done. And I still haven't heard anything that's going to eliminate the amount of PFAS or how much it was reduced. Now, the stuff is already in Mount Clemens, it's in New Baltimore, and because it's Lake St. Clair flows down to Detroit, we could get it in our water eventually. That's one of the problems I had. Nobody brought that out when I looked at the last environmental impact study. There was nothing in there about the PFAS. Whether it was updated or anything, I don't know. But I didn't see anything. The other thing I wanted to bring out, you kind of glossed over the F-35s there. Essentially, Paul talked about Burlington, Vermont, and this was printed last year. But people still complaining about the F-35s. Essentially, they've taken about 250 homes off their tax rolls because they're impacted by the noise from the F-35 and distributed that lost taxes to the other residents. They're also going after, basically, a $5 million grant from the FAA, I guess because it's a shared airfield, to try and get some sound insulation for schools and houses and everybody still impacted. And nobody has talked about this. Paul's talked about it. I've talked about it. We couldn't get anybody on this panel to have an open house. So this may be time to bring this out and let you guys know what's really happening. You all fell in line with going for the resolutions to support Selfridge, which there's nothing wrong with it, but to add to it, bringing in the F-35s, it's a little too much. I'd leave these here. You can pass them out and look them over if you get if you want to.
Thank you, sir. General, I'll turn it back to you if you want to respond.
Like I said, we've been working closely with Eagle with everything that we've been doing with PFAS. I think from our perspective, we are really leading the way, for sure in the state of Michigan, if not in the country, for PFAS mitigation. I'm not aware of any of the homes issues that you brought up about Madison or Burlington, so I can't really comment on that.
John Speaka, 53978 Connor Drive. I want to thank the General for coming to Chesterfield. It's good to see you here. Welcome. And I'd just like to make a recommendation. Because we've got so many politicians involved in what's going on with Selfridge, it would be great to have a public hearing to get the public in so that they can ask questions and you can answer them. I think it would be a positive thing for Chesterfield. And a lot of politicians weigh in on this factor here, but a lot of them don't live in Chesterfield. We live in Chesterfield. We love Chesterfield. We know what it's like to be in this community. And a lot of the residents, even in the community, have questions. So, again, if you could do a public hearing, that would be greatly appreciated. And again, thank you for coming to Chesterfield.
Well, thank you, sir, for the comments. And yeah, we'll have to look at what we can do in the future for the public when it comes to these issues.
General, I have nothing. I appreciate your presentation.
Okay.
You have an open invitation to come here
Thanks, sir.
anytime, you or your staff or representatives. I truly appreciate you reaching out and asking to come here tonight.
Okay.
And again, the invitation stands for any meeting you choose to appear at.
I appreciate it. I just want to say two things before I go. And I live here in the community. I grew up in this community. I got a sailboat. I love to fly fish. So when it comes to environmental concerns, believe me, I take these things just as personally, I think, as everyone here that came up and commented. That is, it's in my deep down DNA that I want to make sure that we are doing everything right for our communities. And again, I look forward to the well, I won't be here for the next 100 years, but our partnership with the communities around Selfridge has always been extremely positive and extremely strong, and I hope to continue that. So I want to thank you for your time. Appreciate it, sir.
Trustee Joseph, one more comment?
Just a final comment, if I could. You heard from a few residents tonight. I've heard from a number of them. I know this wasn't an F-35 presentation. It's just the talk. It's the I think the biggest thing that's been talked about at Selfridge for a while, and being part of the sustainability study and listening to community leaders from all around Macomb County. There is no opposition. So when a big sustainability group comes together, residents and board members, say, city council members from St. Clair Shores or Sterling Heights, they wouldn't know anything about noise or environmental impacts or expanding APZs or development near the base. These are all uniquely Chesterfield things, and I think they're easily addressed with more dialogue from inside the fence, because you said two things here tonight that were never part of the discussions that I've heard, and that was sound comparisons to the F-16. That's an interesting set of data points that I'd like to hear more about, and also the readiness and the awareness and the willingness to take on PFAS in a way that is unique when compared to, you know, like position bases all around the country. That information needs to make its way into our community. Noise contours, environmental development, all of these things. And so I am going to reach out to you, and I appreciate your work. Our last sustainability study meeting prompted some private meetings with Vicki Rad from the, it's not Rad any longer, and I'm
Rowinski.
Rosinski?
Rowinski.
Rowinski.
Yeah.
And one of our biggest developers, Mr. Tom Costello, who owns 200 acres just north of your base. So a lot of interested parties from the county. I'm really glad you're here, and I'm sorry for the, there are a lot of people who are real interested in getting questions. This probably wasn't the most ideal forum, but it's an indicator of things to come, and I appreciate you being here with your team, and look forward to speaking with you more. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
Again, General, thank you. Appreciate it. And
All right.
open invitation anytime.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the communication, too. Item B, presentation. I'd like to introduce Mr. Anderson and Mr. Michael Hewitt, I'm sorry, Mike. Howitt, sorry. I'll give you a little background on this presentation. In 2019, the police department reached out to Enterprise Leasing and looked at evaluating our fleet. They also did an evaluation for the township at that time, and there were some areas of savings that we thought we could pick up on. The previous supervisor and treasurer discussed this at length. This year, we were able to incorporate elements of this in our budget, and we spread it out department-wide from all the departments. With that being said, we are currently evaluating the fleet at the DPW, and I think this fits the model for savings for the township residents within the DPW and the Water and Sewer Department. So we've invited the Enterprise Fleet Management Group in to give a quick presentation and discussion on what they can offer the township. Deputy Duchesne, did I miss anything? No, sir. Okay. With that being said, gentlemen, please, if you don't mind stating your name again so I don't butcher them, and go ahead and proceed.
There we go. Good evening. My name is James Anderson. I'm the Regional Sales Manager for Enterprise Fleet Management here in Farmington Hills. This is my colleague, Mike Halswood. He'll be speaking as well. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of you today. We certainly can answer any questions you have. It may be my first and only chance to follow General, so I hopefully don't do too badly tonight. But ultimately, we're here just to give you a little bit more information in terms of our presentation, some of the people that we work with, many of the names that you will recognize here in Southeast Michigan. To give you a little bit of background, you might recognize our parent company, Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Enterprise is, for those that have rented a car before, they also own National Alamo Rental Car. Worldwide, there's over 2 million vehicles that are operated basically on every continent, I guess minus Antarctica. And today we're here just to talk about a lease proposal that we've been able to have a lot of success with. We have just under 9,000 vehicles on lease at our office here in Farmington Hills. And ultimately some cost savings initiatives that a lot of entities that you'll see here in just a moment have taken advantage of. So I'll turn the mic over to my colleague, Mike.
Yeah, good evening. Mike Halswood. I'm a Senior Client Strategy Manager with Enterprise Fleet Management, and I just had my 22-year anniversary with this company. So it's a pleasure to be here with you guys today. Go ahead. As Jay mentioned, we have some references or some clients that we're currently working with, names that you probably are going to recognize. And as a company, we are serving over 1,000 clients within the municipality government perspective. Today's challenges in these clients that came to Enterprise and ultimately what we're able to help them with is similar challenges that you may have in today's environment. Stress for revenue, downtime, and your overall fleet budget. And if you take a look at this example up here, where most of a fleet budget, from what we hear, some of the issues that they have is it seems like the operational side of having a fleet of vehicles takes up a lot of that capital investment, leaving less capital for new vehicle acquisitions. Go ahead and switch to the next. Ultimately, what we do as a company, as James mentioned, just over 2 million vehicles that we have as a company, is Enterprise understands how to buy vehicles, we understand how to sell vehicles, and we understand the operational costs that are in between. And ultimately, what we are doing is sharing this information that made us ultimately the world's largest fleet with our clients, like yourselves. And it's really a key of looking at the major components, the depreciation, or how much does a vehicle start to lose its resale, and when is that? When is the right time to sell a vehicle? Is it time? Is it miles? Is it a combination of both? We also look at maintenance. When does it make sense to get rid of a vehicle when that maintenance spike is going to occur inevitably over time? And as vehicles continue to age, they lose fuel efficiency. Gas prices continue to be on the rise, so taking a look at those three sectors, and I always say, if we had the magic 8-ball, which is that circle there, the ideal opportunity time for you to dispose of vehicles, to replace vehicles, is when they lose value, maintenance is going to go up, fuel efficiency goes down, so pricing goes up on your fuel costs. And if we could strike that right balance, show you how we do this. This is the same model that we use as Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and it's worked very well for 60+ years. Next. With your buying power, if you look at Enterprise as far as a cost perspective, we are going to compete and be just as efficient as a My Deal, which you may be familiar with, of course. But looking at your ultimate buying power, if you see this vehicle, 2022 Chevy Silverado Crew Cab, it's going to have a net price, window sticker, of just over $40,000. And delivering that vehicle at a phenomenal acquisition standpoint of just over $27,500, utilizing your buying power there, but also then utilizing our ability to finance these vehicles or lease these vehicles back to optimally help you with that capital investment to get you more vehicles than and concentrating on lowering those operation costs. If you can just kind of hit the next couple. Go ahead. And no doubt, you can keep clicking through. So this just shows an example of what we're seeing right now for 2021 Chevy Silverado, which would be a 1-year-old truck, call it about 12,000 miles, what the sale price is for that type of vehicle now. So yeah, in this sense, you could ultimately, if that was the case, buy a vehicle with the incentives that you qualify for, and you'd ultimately can possibly turn it over for a profit, which in today's environment, obviously, if you guys are trying to buy a vehicle, buy a used vehicle, selling vehicles, you know that we're seeing quite a tick in the resale and the purchase price of vehicles. So yeah, go ahead, James.
Next slide. So one of the things we were able to do was to partner with the leadership here at Township and ultimately wanted to show what would be the overall savings over an extended period of time. So I apologize, I know it's a little bit late and there's a lot of numbers on there, but one of the things that we strive to do with every one of our entities is just to save them money. To Mike's point, to take that partnership, all the things that we know from operating one of the largest fleets in the country, and pass those savings along. We do that over an extended period, over a 10-year basis, the goal of which, of course, is to show not only just one rotation of vehicles, but ultimately 2 rotations of vehicles. All this information has been shared, but overall, there's over $800,000 worth of savings that we believe we can save the township simply by replacing vehicles a little bit faster, generating higher resales for when you sell those vehicles, and then really mitigating a lot of the operating expenses that Mike talked about, be it maintenance and fuel. The other piece of this is one of the first questions we get is like, that sounds great, year one. Of course you're gonna save money. Well, the sustainability savings, which is beyond the right-hand side, and again, that's again after we sell the vehicles for the township, again, will continue to save money, ultimately back to that driving power of how well you buy vehicles. Last slide, and again, I apologize for all the numbers, but one of the main reasons why we go to townships and say, well, why would you lease cars? Well, the short answer is traditionally capital budgets don't allow you to buy vehicles for public works, public safety. In the end, the 13 vehicles that we identified as the right vehicles to sell, should you go out and want to write a check for those vehicles, will be over $500,000 today. That includes any kind of aftermarket equipment, plows, dump bodies, whatever you may be. Ultimately, that lease cost is just over $100,000, and in the end, dating back to that 10-year savings will ultimately drive savings back to the township. Whether you sell it in 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, or 4, it really doesn't matter. In the end, we're very confident that this proposal and our work to work with the township leadership will ultimately save money.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from the board? Trustee Joseph.
So we've looked at this in the township historically. When you put this presentation together, did you meet with our existing team? I believe we have a fleet manager, and we have individuals that do these things for us. Did you meet with them as you were putting this package together?
I don't remember the exact amount of times, but at least 5 or 6, if I remember, over the last 6 months. Ultimately looking at the vehicle replacements, some of the vehicles they had in order. Our first original meeting was done just consultative, just trying to get some information in terms of what was being spent today via maintenance, what was the processes around how long they were keeping vehicles, some of which, quite honestly, weren't even running at the time. So to answer your question, yes.
So the policy that seems to be in place here is we buy a vehicle, we drive it till the wheels fall off, we spend tremendous amounts of money at end of life, end of service for the vehicles in terms of maintenance. Then we ultimately make a decision, I think heavily predicated on safety, namely the individual driving the vehicle could be hurt, if we continue. And then we drag it to auction and we get pennies on the dollar. If you come in, why do we need a fleet manager and all of the people involved in our current state of affairs, what we're currently doing with the fleet? If we're gonna, in essence, contract out with somebody to manage this, who sells cars, buys cars for a living, you assess that sweet spot that they're all looking for. Why would we need, what do we do internally with the existing? I know that might not be part of the scope of this, but it is to me. We're already doing this. We're paying a lot of money in staff to manage a fleet. Wouldn't we be duplicating those?
I appreciate the question. It's something we do get quite often. Ultimately, when you hire someone like Enterprise, no different than if you hire from a third-party vendor via payroll, we're not on staff. I don't come here to work every single day. So ultimately, the men and women that work within the township, you're still going to want those folks around. Our ultimate goal is just to provide the expertise around the things that we do every single day to the township. To your point, do you need to keep a vehicle and buy it and keep it forever? Our argument would be no. No different than when you go rent a vehicle from Enterprise. You're certainly not renting that has something 200,000 miles on it, something that has 6, 7, 8 years. And the whole reason around that is just downtime. Vehicles that run efficiently don't need to be in a shop. They don't need to be spent money. And then ultimately, as you can see in the marketplace, today that used vehicle is very, very attractive. And as you all know, we can't get vehicles very easily right now. Ultimately, it's just about using the economics to your favor versus against them.
Yeah, so I guess this is just a presentation. We're not being asked to approve a contract. I'd be interested to know what the service provides. So we buy a vehicle from you. Would part of the service be inclusive of your monitoring of that vehicle's mileage, maybe the market value in a resale situation? I realize times are kind of unique right now, but just on a macro level, I'm nearing the end of my lease, and there are companies that come in that just want to buy it because the residual is so much more attractive than this is what you do for a living. So again, if we're monitoring the fleet with you, what does a fleet manager, full-time, legacy costs, salary, benefits, what do we do there? What do we do with that individual?
I wouldn't be able to comment exactly on what happens internally at the township. I can tell you that historically, every one of our customers on that board have internal fleet managers, folks that work every single day, day to day, be it scheduling or whatever those material, I wouldn't be able to comment to that.
Okay.
A part of our services as well is to help with some of those services in terms of providing maintenance. We guarantee the maintenance for those vehicles.
Yeah.
But I'm not driving it down to Firestone or to wherever those services would be get done.
No, again, my concern is just that we had this discussion as a board. We brought in staff to do this, and now we're hearing like, hey, there's actually a company that'll do it.
Yeah.
That's all they do. So probably more of a discussion internally here, but I appreciate the presentation.
And the only thing I might add is that ultimately there's, I believe, 60 or 70 vehicles within the township. We're not recommending that you replace all of those today.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the replacement, the recommendation is the 13 vehicles. So ultimately, if you have a bunch of old vehicles, they're not going to all go away tomorrow, and quite frankly, they're not going to be here. They'll be here 2 days from now, too. So in the end, sure, we'll be more efficient with the fleet, but ultimately, many of our customers keep internal staff.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, Trustee Anderson, go ahead. So the internal fleet management still doesn't go away. You still have to have that guy in the shop that fixes the tires, rotates the tires, does the maintenance within the day-to-day stuff that they don't. The warranty work is which enterprise or the vehicle vendor manufacturer is really monitored. That still has to be done within house.
I'll save it for the actual, contract presentation, because we probably should look at the bill run and look at how much we're sending out now. And there's like,
Substantial.
it's
We wouldn't be-
substantial. Yeah, thank you.
Trustee Anderson.
That's probably one of the questions I had, is what is our existing costs? I mean, you did a presentation, I appreciate it. What is the township's existing costs on our vehicles? Some of our employees, let's say we, this comes to fruition, and we'll loss of use at the fault of one of our employees in accidents of the trucks or vehicles. How does Enterprise handle that? And fair wear and tear, who decides, this is kind of driving through the bogs of Chesterfield, the county roads, not ours. When there's any problems there, how's that handled as far as, that's the second part. And then the final thing I'm wondering, and this might be an internal question, is it anticipated to replace our whole fleet at once, or as the vehicles, our current vehicles are exhausted? I guess. Thank you.
Okay.
So administratively, no, as he had stated, our entire fleet is not going to be replaced. There are elements of it, and in the method of the presentation that you have in front of you, the goal is to downsize our fleet and to make it right for the work that we have here within the township, particularly in the water and sewer DPW. This element really, the maintenance side, the day-to-day service of the vehicle still has to be done in-house. The warranty work or the said warranty work of whatever vehicle still has to be managed. There is an exchange with the enterprise, the leasing agent. But we still have to have people in-house that make sure that vehicle is serviced. Now, there's a lot of functionality that we can add to this through. We're just not there yet. As far as the insurance element of this, we're as responsible as if we buy the vehicle outright. It's still insured, we're still covered. The positive side of this is, as Trustee Joseph indicated, we buy them and then we drive them until they fall apart. What we are now getting to is a point where that sweet spot, where that vehicle, we know the value of that vehicle, there's still value, residual value to it, and we're gonna remove it from the fleet and replace it with another one, with a newer vehicle. Again, the optimum there is to reduce maintenance costs, to reduce wear and tear, and get a vehicle which is absolutely no maintenance cost within the township. That answer? Did I miss anything, sir? Trustee Dominguez.
My only question is, I don't know if you want to answer this, Mr. Supervisor, the people from Enterprise. We're just talking like 3/4 ton pickups, 1/2 ton pickup trucks, stuff like that. We're not talking 5-yard dump trucks or like the big DPW enclosed van that they use for water breaks. Do you guys do those type of vehicles, or are we just talking like 3/4 ton 4-wheel drive? I don't know what size trucks you go up to. That's my only question.
We limit ourselves about F-650 dumps and below that.
Pardon me?
F-650 dumps are something we can do. It's a very small portion of your fleet. I think there's 1 or 2 of those vehicles.
Okay.
We're primarily concentrating on the pickup trucks and the public safety vehicles, yes.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Thank you, sir. Any further questions from the board? Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate your presentation. We'll look forward to you in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item, General, I don't want to hold your staff up. If you want to excuse yourself, you're more than welcome. We'll enter into the department reports on the agenda. If you want to excuse your staff, you're more than welcome. Item 6, department reports. Are there any department reports?
Good evening, Board. I just wanted to make you guys aware of a conversation from a meeting earlier, well, I guess earlier, it was yesterday. Yesterday morning in Ira Township, the County of St. Clair is having a heavy conversation regarding a sanitary sewer to run along 26 Mile Road from County Line all the way to Marine City. It's roughly 11 miles, and it may also include water main as well. The county, in the meeting, they've had numerous discussions already with those communities in St. Clair County, but the project is estimated over $100 million with roughly $31 million in ARPA funds the county received going to be going towards this project. This has been a heavy conversation. 26 miles has been a heavy conversation within the communities from now Marine City all the way to Ray Township, which is roughly 26 mile in Hayes area, because they're feeling that 26 mile is going to be the next haul road. So there's heavy conversation on how can we get infrastructure moving forward to this side of the county, both counties. So as you guys may be aware, we've been kind of delving with the county, Macomb County. Chesterfield has been in discussions a little bit with, as a part of our sanitary sewer study a little bit, we've talked about what capacity does the township have. We're going to be in discussions with the county on what that looks like on our end. Do we, as the conversations progress, what, if any, portion the township will have. So this is the St. Clair portion, which ends at County Line and 26, heads east. They are all in. All those communities are in. They are just to formulate the plan this year. They're collecting the data, the information, and this will be happening within the next 2 to 4 years. So I know Macomb County has already been in conversations with the communities along this corridor with Chesterfield, Ira, Macomb Township, Lenox, New Haven. So that conversation we'll be having with our community in the next coming months. So we'll be having discussions financially on what the impact will be to us, if any, and are we participating in that or not based on our capacity in our sanitary sewers. So just wanted to make you aware of that conversation.
Thank you, sir. Trustee DeMink?
This is from Parks and Rec. The Macomb County Senior Dining Program has set up shop at Chesterfield Senior Center. Join them on most days for a delicious, nutritious meal. No reservations needed, but meal counts are limited. Doors open at 11 a.m. Stay and socialize with friends or pack your meal to go. Lunch is served at 11:30 a.m. A suggested $3 donation. Feeds are 60 and older friends. Visit Leisure Services website for more information. Also, the Daddy-Daughter Dance comes once a year, creating a special memories for all who attend. Grab your suits, cowboy hats, and dancing shoes for an afternoon with your special little lady. This year's dance takes place on Sunday, February 27th from 4 to 8 p.m. at Zuccaro's Banquet Hall. Registration accepted in person or online through Leisure Services. Space is limited and fills fast. Purchase your tickets today to avoid being on the wait list. It may be cold outside, but start thinking baseball before the sun comes out to avoid missing out on beginning part of the spring leagues. Teams are now forming for boys and girls ages 5 to 15. Registrations accepted in person or online. And also now hiring, looking for unforgettable seasonal job. Join us at Parks and Rec or be instrumental in helping us implement our ever popular summer day camp programs. Earn up to $18 per hour, depending on the position and qualifications. For more information, contact Leisure Services or the Township website. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you, Trustee DeMink. Trustee Joseph?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just a brief update to the board. As your library liaison, I wanted to make you aware that the library board continues to work in cooperation with the Township Board, as well as the Anchor Bay School District, to look at possible uses for an elementary school that may be available. And so looking at shared opportunities is something the board approved. They approved the continuation of discussions with the Anchor Bay School District and the Township at a possible joint use. It looks at this time, and we're still early in the discussion, the library, Chesterfield Library footprint in that building would really not be adequate in terms of replacing the existing library. So that could change, and there's still a lot of possible discussions about who's going to use what and how and space. And of course, the library continues to negotiate with the backdrop being their core obligations to their patrons and to their policies and procedures. And so those negotiations will continue. Additionally, the library director would like me to share with the board and the public that beginning Tuesdays at the library, beginning Tuesday, February 1st through Tuesday, April 12th, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., the IRS Volunteer Income Tax Assistance, or VITA program, will be operating. The tax preparation and filing services are available at the library. Macomb County Veterans Services has partnered with the Macomb Community Action and the Accounting Aid Society to offer free tax help for local veterans and local low-income individuals through this VITA program. For more information or to schedule an appointment, please call 586-463-2537. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments, board member? I'm going to make just a real quick, brief presentation from the supervisor's office. I'm going to read a document that I'll send to you guys via email tomorrow. I've completed my first budget process, and we're concluding with the first month of the fiscal year of 2022. I want to share with the board some of my thoughts and plans for the township moving forward to the rest of this year and at least into the next budget year and hopefully into the future. I've met and discussed with many options and issues that we've had with our budget with experts and those knowledgeable with the best practices. The purpose of this memo that you're going to receive is to come up with a plan, provide a review of management, planning, and determine what steps we may need to take in the future to take control of the financial operation of the township and our government to ensure fiscal stability, provide quality services over a 6-year period. The plan is to generate a 5-year plan with an addition of the current operating year. As your Chief Administrative Budget Officer, I've instructed the Finance Department that I want the next year's budget process to start immediately. The previous timelines, they were moved and delayed. I want to start them now, and we are beginning that process now. Based on this year's experience and the past year's experience, along with the luxury of me having 33 years of service and employment here with the township, I think I've got a unique viewpoint and perspective of the budget process. There's some key points. The following key points that I'm going to point out don't represent a 5-year budget, but it's a starting point. They will be starting points from how we plan, how we include future projections, how the township applies taxing funds, as well as selected proprietary functions, including water and sewer. And I'll engage consultants, professional staff, and I'll also consult this board for direction moving forward, not just on budget, but on capital projects as they arrive and come forward. In my view, the following areas are areas that are our focus, and they will consume considerable amount of time of what I say fiscal management. We're going to focus on a set of financial projections for the 3 years, the pending 3 years, and we'll do a township-wide study looking at our operational position, utilizing the best science and practices aided by verified that are verified and with consulting with experts. I'm going to set a policy of minimum fund balances for each of our major funds, somewhere around 20%. We'll set the 2022 budget as a baseline for major funds moving forward, assuming zero growth in 2023 for spending levels. Again, we'll collaborate with independent professionals, prepare projections for cost of service reports for major funds like the General Fund, Public Safety Fund, Water and Sewer Fund. We'll consult Platt Moran, HRC, and other, again, experts within water and sewer. Some of them are being scheduled for the next presentation board meeting. We're going to apply standards of both GFOA, AWWA, ICMA, and GADSB to our township operations to achieve the best practices in all departments moving forward. Police Department recently accredited by MACP, but we will not stop there. Fire Department underway with accreditation for the Center of Public Safety Excellence. That process is begun. DPW has also begun setting standards with AWWA, American Water Works Association, with standards. Those standards are accepted across many professional levels and in many municipalities that surround us. We will develop and maintain a 6-year financial plan for all major funds, both governmental and proprietary, as already stated. General Fund, Public Safety, Water and Sewer, and also the Brandenburg Park. We're going to cap our full-time employees within the township. That number is within the budgets, 162. That is our budget, that is our target, and that's what we will maintain moving forward. And we will implement continuous improvement processes with all departments within the township. On the community side, we are going to become a development-ready community. And not that we weren't already, but we are going to reach out at every level and expand as we can, in areas that we can. Again, this will be in participation and in conjunction with this board, all members of this board, all department heads. And we will advance the elements of the master plan, which this township has approved, which will encompass economic growth, and will maintain complete schedules of all fees, changes. We'll have the opportunity to get the township, or set the township up for growth and growth revenue, along with improving services, and in association with keeping all costs down in areas that we can control. With that being said, I will email the full document that I've just highlighted some statements out of to the board members tomorrow and make it available for your complete read. So that is the department report from the supervisor's office. And if there are no other reports, I will move to item 7, the consent agenda. Deputy Niza?
All items under the consent agenda are considered routine by the board and will be enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of these items. If discussion of any of these items is required by a board member, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Public comments on the consent agenda items are permitted. Item 7A, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of January 11th, 2021. B, approval of the payment of bills as submitted by the Finance Department. C, approve a request by Fire Department to purchase required repairs to Fire Department 2006 Aerial E1 fire truck in the amount of $5,673.23 from selected supplier Michigan Fire Apparatus Inc. from GL number 205-340-863. Item D, approve a request to pay invoice number INV 327019 and the amount of $19,989.75 to Diligent Corporation, formerly known as iCompass Technologies, for the agenda management subscription cost from GL number 101-228-984.000 to approve annual package subscription costs not to exceed $19,989.75.
Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll support the motion to approve the consent agenda. Comments from the board? Any comments from the public?
John Speaka, 53978 Connor Drive. Mr. Supervisor, you talk about best practices, financial stability, and continuous improvement. Well, I guess my question to you is, does this bill run reflect what you just said? I'm going to say no. On the bill run, I've been up here several times under the clerk's office. There's another charge for JC Media for $400. As a resident, I refuse to continuously pay, not just myself, but the rest of the residents in Chesterfield, for Cindy Berry's campaign running for Secretary of State. You're the supervisor. You need to take leadership on this and make her pay for it. And I'm requesting, I've got 7 board members. I've got 5 present today. Somebody needs to remove that from the bill run and let her pay for it. I'm glad Trustee Joseph is looking at the bill run. Under the Treasurer's office, I'm curious, there was a printer for $770.41 bought. So I'm curious because I was under the impression that departments for cost savings were sharing printers at the Township. Under facilities and operation, Aztec's cleaning has been a major problem as far as my end and the residents' end. We're paying $5,897 just in this building alone per month, plus we're paying for the supplies at $70,764 a year to the residents. Again, this could be done a lot cheaper, and we could save the residents a ton of money in cost savings. Ultima Lawn, several charges with Ultima Lawn, anywhere from facilities and operations to the Anchor Bay pump station, to the fire department, to the police department, between salting and plowing. Again, we're ad sourcing because we've got people here at the township that can take care of that. We're paying out $13,730 between the salting and the plowing. We've got a sidewalk maintenance study on there for $9,000 that we're paying. I mean, we've got a full-time engineer here on staff. This is something that our engineer can do. So here's another example of wasting taxpayers' money. Again, we need to focus in on, reeling in the costs in Chesterfield. We don't have the money in Chesterfield to keep wasting it. And the bill run is just a prime example of how we continuously waste money in Chesterfield. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments from the public? We'll bring it back up to the board. Any comments from the public? Further comments from the board? Please, Mr. Ritt, please.
Well, good evening, Supervisor Curson and the board. My name is Kevin Herritt. I'm Regional Director for Senator Gary Peters, and am delighted.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
Do you want to comment publicly, or you want to comment on the agenda item, the bill run?
Oh, I'm sorry.
If you give us a little bit, the public comments will be coming.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
I'm not informed on the bill run.
I get it. I didn't think you wanted to. Any further comments from the public? I'll bring it back up to the board. I have a motion by Trustee DeMink, supported by Supervisor Kirsten, to approve the consent agenda as read by Deputy Nyza. Deputy Nyza, please call the roll.
Trustee DeMink.
Aye.
Supervisor Kirsten.
Aye.
Trustee Elliott. Oh, Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
And Trustee Joseph.
No.
Item 8, public hearing. There are no public hearings scheduled. We will go to the regular agenda, proceed to the regular agenda. Item 9A. Deputy Nizer.
Approve a recommendation to reimburse Jacob Seeloff for his education tuition in the amount of $6,579.50 from GL number 205-336-864.000.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Joseph, supported by Supervisor Kirsten, to approve item 9A. Deputy Duchesne, do you want to provide some background on this if necessary, or?
Excuse me. We have a contractual obligation under the labor contract to provide this. The employee has followed all the steps and is approved for the reimbursement process.
Thank you, sir. Any comments from the public?
Mike Horton, 50393 Bauer. Just wanted to say for Jacob, knowing him personally and working with him, I want to wish him congratulations on completing his paramedic course. I know that's what the tuition was for, and I hope he's going to be served well with that skill set. We need as many people in that sort of field as possible, and he's going to do a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments from the public? I'll bring it back up to the board. Any comments? I have a motion by trustee Joseph, supported by Supervisor Kirsten, to approve item 9A. Deputy Nizer.
Trustee Joseph?
Aye.
Supervisor Kirsten?
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
And Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Item 9B, Deputy Nizer.
Approve a recommendation by Public Works to purchase meters and meter components from Ferguson Waterworks at a total cost of $107,596.43 from GL 591-542-740.000.
So moved.
A motion by trustee Demink,
Support.
supported by Treasurer Elliott. Director Johnson, please.
All right, so as you guys are aware, we have the inventory system going on right now, and we were kind of hit with a double whammy in January, not only with the notification that meter delays are up to 12 weeks now instead of 5 weeks, that meter prices went up 20%. So it is a substantial increase that we did not expect. Normally, it's a couple percent increase per year, and this is only, they cannot guarantee that this is the only increase this year. So what the goal here was, I added two attachments to this agenda item. Number one is we have a count currently of all the open taps that have been paid for. So as building department gets their permits, they have to pay for a water tap, so we know what size water meter is gonna be in that house. So with that, we went through our system, we went through all of our records, we figured out how many open taps are there. I listed developments as well that are coming into our community, that we know how many lots are on each development, so we know how many meters and meter size are gonna be there, as well as an estimate for meter replacements that we do every year. I also attached, to kind of go with the data to help inform, I attached our KPI sheet, our key performance indicators that we now, as of last year, follow routinely. We've been following some indicators over the past 4 years or so through the budget process, but we kind of made more extensive, detailed dive into more important data for our department. So with that, I highlighted specifically the 1 inch and 3/4 to show what we did in 2021 and kind of use that data to figure out, extrapolate how many meters we're gonna need over the course of this year, kind of get a gauge. So I use that data to kind of compile, along with the number of open taps and stuff we have, to compile to get the numbers for this purchase. With the 12-week lead time, we're gonna kind of take those months on that spreadsheet and order as we need, but far enough in advance that we get these meters as soon as possible. We made an order in December, we still have not received that order, so that's been almost a month now, and they told us 3 to 5 weeks. We're going on close to, 5-6 weeks now, so we should be prepared for anything and anything at all. And I'm here for any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any comments from the board? Comments from the board? None? Any comments from the public? Seeing no comments from the public, I bring it back to the board. I have a motion by trustee Demink, supported by treasurer Elliott, to approve item 9B. Deputy Nyza.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kirsten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
And Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Item 9C, Deputy Nyza.
Public Works is seeking authorization to enroll in the Low Income Household Water Assistance Program, LIHWAP, a program released by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services to be administered by Macomb County Action Agency.
Do I have a motion to approve or approve item 9C?
Motion to approve.
Treasurer Elliott. I will support Treasurer Elliott. Just a little background, Kevin, I don't want to steal you. This is another social program that we're allowing. There really isn't a cost to this. It's just a program allowing some of our needy residents that we may identify the opportunity to help them with water services in the township. Kevin, please.
Yep, I just wanted to mention, so this kind of is an addition to the RAP program, or Water Residence Assistance Program, that we do through Great Lakes Water Authority, which is kind of built into our water rates through the Great Lakes. We currently have 12 residents on the RAP program, so in order to qualify for this program, you also need to be on the RAP program. So right now, it's not going to affect a lot of residents, but it potentially could in the future. And this goes for a few years, so or I think it's next year, but September of '23, but it'll be continuing, and I think it'd be good to help our residents.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any further comments from the board? No, sir. Comments from the public? Any further comments from the public? Seeing none, bring it back to the board. Deputy Nyza.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kirsten.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
And Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. Item 10, the addendums. There are no addendums being added. We'll move to item 11, public comments. There is a 5-minute time limit. If you would please state your name for the record for the public when you speak, and the clock will begin when you begin speaking. Welcome back, sir.
I think this is the right time. Aha, that sounds better. Well, good evening, board. Thank you, Supervisor Kirsten. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I wanted to, I came to the meeting tonight to listen to this conversation about Selfridge, because this is really important. And it occurred to me while I was sitting there, and I texted my wife to get permission to stay, because it occurred to me that there were some things that were worth talking about this evening. So first, my name's Kevin Harrod. I'm Regional Director for Senator Gary Peters, which I said earlier out of order. And in my role, I travel throughout the entire region and represent the senator. Obviously, members of Congress and the U.S. Senate, they're in Washington, D.C. 5 days a week, and so they can't be everywhere or even most places most of the time, and so that role falls on us. But a few things I want to talk about, and I was just going to work in this order. So first is we're just now getting guidance for the funding for the bipartisan infrastructure bill that was passed with bipartisan support last year. That bill will provide a wide array of funding for infrastructure projects, not the least of which roads, bridges, sewers, underwater infrastructure. A few things of particular note, obviously here in Chesterfield Township, the township has been the beneficiary of some federal money for multiple Great Lakes Restoration Initiative projects, one at Brandenburg and of course in the Salt River, and more funding for that project as well. And also another project which we're really excited about, which is a fund called the Storm Act, which will provide for some funding for communities that have lots of coastline, such as the state of Michigan, for flooding and resiliency work. So we're really excited about that program. Secondly, I wanted to talk about the National Defense Bill for a second because it was sort of germane to this conversation tonight. Citizens throughout the state of Michigan have rightly expressed deep issues and deep concerns about PFAS contamination. Senator Peters has been working on, in his role as the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee and in his role on armed services, and we were proud to have included in the 2022 Federal National Defense Authorization Act $476 million for environmental mitigation and cleanup, and that is a fund with which they will be able to use for PFAS contamination cleanup at primarily Air Force facilities. One of the things that General Mauman had mentioned, but I think is worth sort of exploring a little bit more, is that Michigan has really, as a state, has been on the cutting edge of identifying PFAS sites. We were one of the first states in the country to start testing. We have the most comprehensive testing regime in the entire country. And as a result, we were more aware of this earlier than virtually every other state. Now, being aware of it is one thing, and being able to do something about it is another. And so we were excited to be able to get that funding into the National Defense Authorization Bill this year in order to provide the DoD with the necessary resources to start cleaning those sites up. Selfridge, obviously, we have a very big problem at Wurtsmith Air Force Base up in Oscoda. I think people are probably aware of that because it's in the news, and their levels are way, like, extremely high, and then at Sawyer and the other sites. So we're very proud of that work, and we're also proud to support Selfridge Air National Guard Base, and as a result of when the Department of Defense made their decision on citing F-35 foreign military sales mission back in the fall of last year, or in the summer of last year, the senator immediately placed a hold on the current Air Force secretary because what happened in that process was that Selfridge scored higher as a base, as a location, and then it went behind closed doors, and when it came out, Selfridge did not get the mission. Not putting aside the questions about the mission for a second, which are important and critical questions to ask, the hold strategy was about holding the Air Force accountable for what they're doing and making them answer for it. And we're proud to have done that as well, because over the last 20 years, the state of Michigan has slowly been pieced apart in its connection to the Department of Defense, one program after another being pulled away and taken from the state. And so it was time to stand up and make them clarify what our future is going to be. Now, General Mauman, how much time do I have? I'm sorry. Okay. Well, I think I'll just close with this. One of the ways our office can also help constituents is with their casework, VA, Social Security, Medicare, and passports. You can find us online at peters.senate.gov. I'll be around afterwards, but we're always happy to answer questions about all of these topics, and I was very happy to hear the community comment tonight because this is all very important for us as we move forward. But I'll just say in closing, I think General Mauman suggested that it's unlikely that this current F-35 mission is coming to Selfridge Air National Guard Base. They have never moved one of these things before, so even though they made a backroom deal to get it down to Arkansas, or there's something fishy about it, we're not hopeful that they're going to change their mind and move it over here. That said, the future of the installation is important for our community and for the state of Michigan. And then finally, I'll just say thank you so much. I look forward to working with all of you on identifying and getting these grants for the Chesterfield Township to move the infrastructure piece forward. And I always appreciate working with everybody. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments from the public?
John Spica, 53978 Conner Drive. I want to thank the supervisor for giving the representative from Mr. Peters' office extended time. I don't think somebody coming from DC should ever be limited on time at this podium. Thank you for coming too, Kevin. Dave, Trustee Joseph, I'm going to answer your question, going back to the fleet question that the supervisor touched upon but didn't answer. In a case like that, if you're going to bring a fleet company in, what you're going to do, in my opinion, is you fire your fleet manager, because at that point, you don't need the fleet manager. So you could put an admin on staff, and an admin can handle as far as recording and getting back with the fleet company, so there'd be no need. And as far as our fleet manager right now, if you look at the bill run and we talk about fiscal, stability and best practices, well, you want to look at the Bell Tire run, thousands of dollars. You want to look at, Milne Ford, big money there, thousands of dollars. I mean, every bill run, what the fleet manager should be doing, oil changes, tire rotations, brake jobs, it gets all ad-sourced. So the residents are paying for it. So my question was, well, why do we even have a fleet manager if we're going to ad-source and send it out anyway to get done? So I was told that Jeremy's hired to make decisions. So that's his role. So even though he's under the fleet manager, he's hired to make decisions. So Supervisor Kirsten, in your closing comments, again, you made a statement at the last meeting, about that Chesterfield does not have a budget deficit. Just for clarity on that, when you've got more money going out than coming in, that's considered a budget deficit, Mr. Supervisor. Mr. Supervisor, you lied to the residents again and again. We're $3.4 million and counting in the red. I didn't invent math, but I sure in the hell know how to use it. You're lying to the residents, and that amazes me. Those numbers that I'm giving you, those aren't John Spica's numbers. Those are numbers from your budget. The budget again shows that we're projected to be $3.5 million in the red. Again, you're telling me, Mr. Supervisor, you're either telling me you don't know what's in your budget, or you're either lying. It's one or the other. At the last comments, you talk about personal attacks. You're the king of personal attacks. When facts and data are presented at this podium, that's not a personal attack. Those are facts. For example, again, in Chesterfield, we're $3.5 million in the red. That's not a personal attack. It's a fact. It's out of your budget. Instead of trying to fix the problem, you throw a tantrum and you act like a 3-year-old in your ending comments. And nothing's based on facts when you come at me. Everything that I say up here is fact-based, and I can prove it to you, and you know it. A couple weeks ago, I asked you about 3 85-inch 4K TVs that the taxpayers paid in Chesterfield at about $4,500. Where are they? I haven't gotten an answer on where they're at. But you know what? I did my own investigating, and I found out where they're at. I got one in Josh's office, one in Mike's office, and another one in Stephanie's office. And thank God I said something about the TVs that were on the bill run, because 8 other TVs were taken back to BJ's that were I have no clue where those were gonna go. But here's what amazes me is you talk about transparency, but on the bill run, I didn't see the 8 TVs purchased, and I didn't see the 8 TVs returned to BJ. So maybe you can explain to me what happened there. Another thing that you might want to consider is, since you've been appointed supervisor, a number of outstanding and dedicated employees have left. For example, you got Alan Clark, you got Cindy Greenya, you got Mary Gomez, you got JR, Don Connington, you got Mark Collins, you got Frank from the DPW, you got Scott the inspector, and now Nancy. These are all hardworking dedicated employees. I'm starting to see a pattern here, and it concerns me, Mr. Supervisor. And another thing that concerns me is, I put it out there in good faith to our clerk, Cindy Berry, about coming to work and let's take in baby steps, an hour at a time. Well, she's failing miserably at coming to work, and nobody's holding her accountable. So that's free money that we're depositing in her account every 2 weeks. Now, it's to the point, this is the second meeting that she's missed this year already. I'm keeping tabs on everybody that shows up and when they're not here. That to me, as a resident, is unacceptable. And again, as the supervisor, you take the leadership role in administering policy and making sure that things get done at the township. I mean, as you know, you're entitled to your own opinions, Mr. Supervisor, but you're not entitled to your own facts. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments from the public?
Joe Kadich, 32825 Sutton. I appreciate Senator Peters' representative being here. I hope he took something away from the people that discussed what Chesterfield is up against if the F-35 comes to Chesterfield. If Senator Peters is the one that stopped Ebbings Field from getting the F-35s and bringing it here, I don't know why he did it, because Chesterfield has nothing to gain and a lot to lose by doing it. And I think it would behoove him to come here and see what the Chesterfield people would lose. As I mentioned, I gave out some of the papers as what happened in Burlington, Vermont. That started in about 2014. The papers I gave out, I think, were from last year. The people are still suffering there from the F-35s. The noise from the F-35 isn't a little bit more than the F-16. It's a lot more. And if you'd have been here 2 years ago when some of the planes were flying in for an air show in Canada, you knew when the F-35 flew in as opposed to the other plane. The same thing last year when it came in for Willow Run. You knew when the F-35 was taking off. And the problem is, Hackle, Peters, everybody else got everybody behind this thing to push this for the base. And nobody came to Chesterfield because all of this noise and even the pollution comes right into Chesterfield. That runway ends up right at the line in Chesterfield where they take off. That runway ends, they're airborne, they're over us. And as I said, you've got the noise pollution that's going to affect probably 2 or 3 schools. God knows how many homes are going to be affected by it, that somebody's going to have to say, I'm going to have to soundproof my house to get rid of this, but what do you do when you're outside? This township board, when they passed that resolution for the sustainability of Selfridge and bringing in the F-35s, did nothing to go to the residents, tell the residents what was going to happen. They did it on the sly. There was no presentations here. I personally believe that Supervisor Acciavatti went to those meetings beforehand, knew what was going on, deliberately didn't have any town hall meetings, did nothing, and then got the board to okay that resolution without getting any input from the residents. Sold them down the drain. Who knows, that job he's got down there with Candace Miller may be a reward for doing that. But Candace Miller didn't do anything about the PFAS coming into the Clinton River that goes into Lake St. Clair either. You hear her every week about her stopping some type of pollution coming into that river and what company or who did it. But you've never heard anything about the PFAS that's draining into the Clinton River from her. That's part of her obligation. Please, I'll send a copy of that scoping meeting that's coming up. I think that's the 1st and the 3rd of February, where you can phone in public comment, you can write public comments in. I suggest that the board reconvene and look at whether they really should have authorized that. At least take out the part about the F-35s coming in. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments from the public?
Paul LaFata, 48055 Mallard. PFAS has been a known issue in the Clinton River and Selfridge Air Force Base since 2017. In the 127th Wing Environmental Comments that was released on June of last year, 2021, they made a comment that they are going to continue to test. They have data. They have data that the PFAS levels are above what Michigan Eagle allows, and they state they are going to continue to test and take data. There's a quote out of it: "There's no comment for current abatement whatsoever to allowable levels of PFAS." I applaud Senator Peters for getting money to abate this, but Senator Peters needs to get on somebody in Macomb County and somebody at the air base to utilize this money and start doing something, because testing doesn't do it. And the other thing that nobody mentioned is the base is below the lake levels, and they constantly pump lake water along with rainwater. There's 4 pumps on that base that pump water that comes in from the lake. And the PFAS is in the ground, and when the water's pumped out, the PFAS goes into the lake. They can't contain it. All they're doing, they can't abate it. All they're doing is moving it around right now. They've got to do something differently. I wish you would thank Senator Peters for getting the funding, but like I said, he needs to pry somebody to make something happen, because it hasn't. Candace Miller, who used to be a state senator, is also a proponent of F-35s, but she's the current county drain commissioner, and responsible for what's in the Clinton River. But she's not going to stomp on somebody's toes and tell them you need to clean up the Clinton River or the Selfridge Air Force Base and tell them to base F-35s at the same time. It's kind of non-productive for politicians to want 2 things to happen that are, one doesn't really complement the other. So please take that back to Senator Peters. I'd appreciate it. The other thing is Supervisor Kirsten, I applaud you in saying that you're going to do something with the budget, but best practices, following best practices, doesn't manage a business model. To manage a business model, managers have to be responsible for what they do and what they spend. But best practice, you could follow all of the process and procedures and everything else and still hemorrhage it with an operating cost. Best practices doesn't do that. Management is what it takes to do cost reductions, be efficient, proper utilization, whether to make buy decisions to buy or lease vehicles. I would suggest, if the township is really serious about best practices, is they create a continuous improvement commission so that you can move forward and somebody's actually monitoring what's happening on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to see the needle move from deficit to affordability. That would be what they would do. I hate to say it in the private sector, but I know Trustee Vosberg says this isn't the private sector, and that's why we have deficits. But consider looking at management skills, because best practices doesn't move the needle. You can use all the best practices in the world and still have a deficit. Thank you.
Any further comments from the public?
Mike Wharton, 50393 Bauer. Having the general here tonight was a little strange because it's the first time I've ever had a situation having a former boss and a current boss in the same room, so that was kind of interesting. With what he said earlier, though, regarding the actions with Selfridge, it was, it's been a privilege of mine over the last 6 years to have been a part of a lot of the things going on with the base. The situation in Alpena, I was a part of that, and I've been to Latvia on a mission, been deployed, been Habitat for Humanity in Puerto Rico, been all across the country doing things regarding engineering projects. And I'm very fortunate to be a part of the Air National Guard in that action. One of the things that was a little, well, I think it's very great, especially within our county, that we have a resource like the base to rely on in formats of fire mutual aid. I did kind of find it was very saddening, though, that we have to be so reliant on the mutual aid process. While it's great to have it there, it's not something that should be utilized in such high capacities when it's not necessary. And I feel that's part of our disadvantage in this community regarding the current situation with public safety regarding fire departments. In a large-scale format of everything, we look at something like what I've constantly discussed with other people is the Troy City model as an ideal model for fire departments moving forward. The problem, though, you have, though, with that type of environment is they have, I believe, 11 career officers and 180 volunteer firefighters. In order to have something like that work, you need overwhelming force, overwhelming numbers. And Troy, I believe, has just under 90,000 residents. I don't know the exact number, but in relation to Chesterfield, that's about almost double our population. In that sort of regard, for a system like that to work in this township, that would mean that we would need, say, 90 volunteer firefighters for that system to work in this township. And whereas I found it very prideful to do my civic duty for the township for 2 years, it's not sustainable, nor is it in the realm of possibility for many people in this township to perform such a task nowadays. It is part of a bygone era, an era that I wish could come back, but because of the specialization regarding the services needed, it's very difficult, as I mentioned in the last meeting, very difficult to get people to obtain high degrees of specialization for part-time or volunteer work. We are no longer living in the days where the paging can come in and we can rally together dozens of community members to fill fire stations. As I've said in the last meeting, you need a permanent basis for watchers on the wall ready to fight at any moment, to deploy at any moment. And this is something I've learned is both a person who's been on active duty military status and as a guardsman. There are functions for both, but in a community like this, it is highly imperative that you don't go down the route of too much of a reliance on personnel who are not able to be committed fully to a career basis. And what I've come to learn, although only a short period of time, I definitely have had my mind convinced on the notion that this is a full commitment, a career, a lifestyle you have to commit yourself to. And it comes with many risks, not only for the possibility of death on the job, but also for a shortened lifespan. Neighboring state district led by Representative Yark. He had recently passed in the state government a bill to help provide better health insurance for all firefighters within the state. And it's because firefighters have a higher rate of cancers and other types of ailments because of the exposures and the stresses and everything else that deals with on the job. This is something that needs to be taken into consideration. With all that being said, I will continue on with this in future meetings, trying to talk about these types of issues. They're very important and definitely worth discussions. Also, on the subject of firefighters, I would like to express condolences to the 3 that were lost on the East Coast, I believe it was in New Jersey. It was a very sad event, and I have thoughts and prayers for that, for those individuals and that fire department. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments from the public? No further comments from the public? I'll bring it back up to the board. Trustee Anderson.
Thank you. Spent most of my life, except for a period of time, living in the city of Detroit, living in this general area. Learned to live with Selfridge, appreciate it. I appreciate General Mumet's and his staff presentation tonight about Selfridge, the importance of it, over 100-year history, all the components of our national security that can be found there. I also have tremendous respect from the words, and I'd advise those out there that are watching to take the time to go back and see what Treasurer LaFata had to say about this process. And I guess it boils down to the fact, all the support that seems to be coming from out there for all these things for Selfridge. The bottom line I'm concerned about, and I think some of us, we all should be concerned about, how will all these things affect the quality of life for our residents? That's the bottom line. What's the benefit of it? The planes, the jets land just past Sugarbush, or 21 Mile Road. They come in there, they're coming in, you see them fly in there. Our southern boundary of our township adjoins the base. What effect, anything, whether it's the F-35s or what's going on, how are we in Chesterfield going to be affected by it? Our love of nature, we're very fortunate. We're not like many of these other communities that don't have to worry about it. We got our areas, our open areas, we have the lake, everything else, and everything that comes with it, a lot of wildlife. And again, I'll just say, I know they're just talk about a town hall. I'd encourage everyone to show up, bring your concerns, pro and con. And I'll end that part of my remarks by saying, how will it affect anyone living within the perimeters or working in the perimeters of Chesterfield? How will it affect us? I know there were some comments about the bill run. I concur. I know some of those issues can't be addressed. They're contractual. Some of them, there's job security, there's contracts in place for the employees. You just can't dismiss people. Others, there may be something that can be done. I know that's something that we should look at. I mean, sure, I could vote no, but that's strictly symbolic on the budget. I'm going to talk to a couple of my board members here. Maybe there's something we can do to address a couple of the expenditures. And if we can do it, we'll take a look at it and present it to the board. Everybody else moving through February here, stay warm, don't leave the dogs outside, and stay safe. Thank you.
Trustee Joseph.
Thank you. I'll pick up where Trustee Anderson left off, and one of the speakers spoke about regarding the bill run. The no vote on the consent agenda was exactly what Trustee Anderson suggested. It was very symbolic. There's not much you can do, with the exception of what Trustee Anderson just presented. My continual problem is we have an IT director, and paying a contractor to run a Facebook page or social media pages for an individual department is a redundancy. We've brought it up several times, and we've pulled it from the bill run. It continues to be there, and I guess there are some discretionary monies that each department has that they can spend under a certain amount, and that one is one that I think is being abused. I don't know the exact mechanism, but I like Trustee Anderson's idea. I think we should bring an action item to vote on, and the elimination of these outside vendors at the discretion of department heads when we have the service in-house. If we have an IT director, we have webmasters, we have individuals that run our social media, duplicating that is an abuse. I don't know how many pages the clerk has, but in speaking with dissatisfaction from employees, there is a lot of that, and I'm not sure what's going on, but I got a text message, it was a screenshot, irony and insult to injury. The clerk's office had a post that said something to the effect of 80% of success is just showing up. If that isn't an ironic post, and then the insult is, we paid $400, the taxpayers paid $400 to give us a message about success in life is just showing up, and I can't talk to her about it because she's not here. So something definitely needs to be done there. The other issue that I wanted to say congratulations to firefighter Seeloff, and I wasn't aware that the education stipend was a contractually collective bargaining agreement item. I'd like to see that. I was under the impression that those expenditures were at the discretion of the public safety director. I'm assuming in concert with the fire chief. There would be some consultation in that relationship. I always approve those because I think that whether or not we have a full-time or a part-time individual, any firefighter that is on the scene that has enhanced life-saving capabilities is a value add for the township. I have been somewhat concerned with part-time staff coming in, receiving their paramedic credentials. We approve that because it enhances our safety overall, and then that individual leaves the township and goes off to another community. So I'm not familiar with paramedic firefighter Seeloff. I hope he has a long career here in the township, and that the township residents get the benefit of his education through the direct application of his certification. While I'm in that area, I'll address a few comments regarding the watchman on the wall and the idea of I think the advocacy for a full-time department in the comparison to Troy. I don't think that is an era gone by. In fact, then Director Kirsten and I took a field trip out to Troy some years ago. It was astonishing to see, and I agree with the comments regarding our current culture and how that would be a difficult task, but I think it's important to point out that the previous fire chief had really no incentive and had de-incentivized, if you will, paid on call or volunteers. In fact, when he retired, I believe we had one remaining part-time firefighter, and it was then Safety Director Kirsten who made a point to actively recruit part-time in an effort to increase the available firefighters. And so the incentives that are associated with that are education stipends and so forth, but Troy continues to grow at a pace faster than Chesterfield, and their population comparison is really not even the whole story. When you look at the size of Troy compared to the size of Chesterfield, you can talk about the residents, but it is the daily population that is the most impressive. And what I mean by that is how many people from Troy, or how many people in general, come to Troy or go to Troy for the purpose of work. And so their numbers, or shop, or dine in their restaurants, or take advantage of all of the things that Troy offers, their daytime population is significantly higher than their resident population. And it's, again, the opposite here in Chesterfield. More residents in Chesterfield leave Chesterfield for employment than come into Chesterfield for employment. So the fact that they have basically a volunteer fire department speaks to the culture that they've created there, and there are really waiting lists, individuals who come on board in that fire department. The training is extensive, and the individual stations in Troy are sort of mini cities amongst themselves, in that they elect board members to handle the finances for the individual fire station, and so the culture is completely different. But this idea of somehow they're an era, a gone-by era, is, I think, couldn't be further from the truth. They're not standing in line with wooden buckets, passing them down to each other. It's a very sophisticated fire department and well-run and well-organized. So there is a model there that is quite impressive. The comments from Senator Peters' office, and Mr. Ritt, while you were wrapping up your comments, I could hear some conversation at the end of the board, and I was just getting ready when you said, I'll go ahead and wrap up. We should have extended your time, and if I had known that you intended to make any kind of presentation today, I would have asked for you to be part of the original presentation. You could have taken as long as you want, because independent of political party, Senator Peters has been a real advocate for this state, and when he comes here through you or any other representative, I want to hear. And I think our residents want to hear, and it's a great benefit to hear about what's going on in his office, and I appreciate you being here, and I'm sorry that you were cut short. It won't happen again. We'll make sure you get all the time you need. And one of the things that I do hope goes back to Senator Peters' office is this concept of what's happening at Selfridge as it relates to a possible expansion of the base and what that means for our residents. And some of the comments that you heard, I think, are 100% spot on. And there was reference to the sustainability study that is wrapping up now, which started approximately 18 months ago. Over 2 years ago, there was a kickoff meeting and a discussion about the sustainability study, which required a grant. There was several $100,000 of work associated with this study, and it required a grant. A lot of work went on between the county, the base, the state, and the Matrix Company was awarded the grant to conduct the sustainability study. When they had a kickoff meeting, there was no member of our board present at that meeting. And so it's, in my opinion, started on the wrong foot. Myself and then Treasurer LaFata, who was a member of the board, we actually heard about the kickoff meeting through some of our friends in other jurisdictions who were part of that meeting. And there was a lot of very disappointing sort of response on why and how the township was not represented then. But it was after considerable frustration was expressed that the county then reached out and said, you know, Chesterfield's situation is unique, and they should be a part of the sustainability study in greater proportion than other communities. In fact, we had 2 voting members, myself and then Treasurer LaFata. And I won't bore you or anybody else with the entire 18 months, but when these meetings would take place, what you find is community representatives from outside of Chesterfield and statewide are very, very enthusiastic about the F-35 and the possibility for the region and the state. And you heard in General Mamet's presentation, Selfridge is sort of the last of the Mohicans in essence when it comes to the disruption of bases and the presence of the military in Michigan. So advocacy for Selfridge is at a premium statewide. But if you looked at it from an individual who, home is on the border, you could see that Chesterfield's concerns are a bit unique. And so the development of the south end of our community is at times in great conflict with the base operations and the missions of the base. So an expansion of the runway would mean an expansion of the APZ. The problem zones, they're euphemistically referred to as the crash box. When you expand the base north, you're already at M59, and now you're into Chesterfield. So the discussions that took place during the sustainability study were not well received. And it wasn't lost on me that a guy who was recognized for his bravery, service, and the fact that he was actually for a brief time listed as a KIA in Vietnam before they realized that most of his company that was wiped out didn't include him. That guy, through politics, was called a traitor, un-American, unpatriotic, because he happens to live in Chesterfield and he's concerned about the quality of life for his children and his grandchildren. That happened to him. And the political season exposed even more of that. It was one of the ugliest things I've ever seen. But I served with the guy, and I listened to him talk in meetings to simply say, noise contours is a fancy way of saying I won't be able to spend any time in the backyard barbecuing when there's flight traffic. PFAS is a real concern, and when you disturb the ground and build more runways, potentially PFAS goes somewhere else, and what about that? And for his advocacy of his community, he was called all kinds of ugly things. It was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. But the wrap-up meeting for the sustainability study ended with me having an opportunity to express my concerns, and I was advised that my words were reckless and not appropriate, but I wanted to know about does the expansion of Selfridge mean eminent domain for developers and businesses on the south end of our township? Will Chesterfield South become Selfridge North? Will we just be one giant community of crash boxes, and will we have the presence of Selfridge at every one of our planning meetings, making sure that we don't construct anything that's higher than 10 feet off the ground? And if we do, what are we going to do with the retention ponds? Because they create havens for migratory waterfowl, and bird strikes are not good with the aircraft. So all of these things go into the quality of life in Chesterfield. And very early on, when the resolution that was referenced here was brought forward, it wasn't drafted by anybody in the township. It came from outside the township, and the resolution, said, whereas all things Selfridge are great, and Selfridge is the best thing ever, and so forth. There were some of us who said, well, what is the benefit of Selfridge in Chesterfield? And if it does bring $700 million of revenue into the township, how come our residents have to vote to pass an SAD to get the road in front of their house fixed? And why couldn't some of that $700 million make its way into the Department of Roads and repair some of Chesterfield roads? It's an honest question. And it's one that unfortunately is easily defeated when you attack someone's patriotism. And so there are plenty of individuals who don't live in Chesterfield who are open to hearing our concerns, and I'll keep appealing to them and asking to be in a room with them, no matter what forces try to keep me out of that room, because I'm just as patriotic as everyone else. But I do take my job as a trustee seriously, and advocating for the quality of life of Chesterfield is the reason I'm here. And so there are others, and you heard it tonight, references to past supervisors and backdoor deals and meetings with county officials and so forth, and implications that they've then cashed that in to go on to the county, and they're rewarded for their cheerleading activities. I noticed they were here again tonight. They weren't part of the meeting, but I noticed they pranced down the hall, and I think we're getting autographs from the base command staff, and it's a problem. Those individuals were elected to represent us. It's what I was elected to do, and I'll stay on it. I would like and I will continue to advocate for a town hall. I'd love to talk to you, Mr. Ritt, more about some specifics. And I'll continue to advocate for the residents who are concerned about their quality of life. The last thing I wanted to address was, Mr. Supervisor, I'm looking forward to this email tomorrow. And I recognize some of the things in your outline as issues that are very important to you and things that you've shared with me, and I applaud you for that. I do share some of the concerns about the utilization of experts. They're always good to get people in the know, but through this is my third term on the board, it seems to me that an expert, by definition, is somebody who has a briefcase and lives in another community. And then we invite them in, and then we say, you're the expert, and, you know, so I want to be real careful about what we're doing to get information that may be already available to us. We have a lot of information that's already available to us that sort of lands where Trustee Lafata was talking about, and that is basic management. But I do like the overall idea, and again, I'll look forward to the email, but we started to talk about this with the exit of our investment coordinator. Mr. Coddington and Ms. Clark is, you know, over 70 years of experience, but they come in two departments that are the most sort of money-ish. DPW and our tax revenue coming in are two critically important ideas that I think would benefit from a position involving what sounds to me like maybe a chief financial officer, maybe somebody whose primary training and education is in finance and business and accounting, and looking for a way to creatively combine those positions, which is why I was so adamant 2 weeks ago that we don't turn that into a political appointee. Had we followed the proposed plan 2 weeks ago, what we would have done is potentially replaced or attempted to replace Ms. Clark with a political appointee with no experience in finance or the Treasury. Would have been a catastrophe. I'm glad we didn't do it. And I'm very, very encouraged about the idea of possibly combining those positions in a chief financial officer type of way. And I'll look to take your lead and hear what you have to say on that. But turning that department into a political appointment process would be disastrous. And having the opportunity to talk with Mr. Siebert and Ms. Anderson, who was here last week, very familiar with the appointment process, and we're certainly able to appoint a deputy treasurer at the compensation level of $3,000. Historically, that's always been done by an in-house employee. Sadly, I've heard from most of the employees, and it doesn't sound like we have interest in that position, and I think that maybe speaks to how the department is being run, more so than a lack of qualified people. I'll wait to see what the appointment process is, but I hope we stand firm in making sure we bring in people with experience and qualifications to take over or try to take over for the work that's been done in the past 4 decades by the person who is leaving us. Lastly, I just want to say thank you to my friend, Trustee Anderson, who, again, one of the great pleasures of being on this board is meeting so many great people, independent of political party. I've really developed some great relationships with some of my former and current board members, and Trustee Anderson is just an exceptional friend and very, very thoughtful. And I was really feeling the impact of COVID last week, and reaching out to me and saying, hey, I'm with you if you need anything was much appreciated. I think the card was probably written by Mrs. Anderson. I think she likes me a little more, but thanks for thinking of me, and thanks to my fellow board members.
Thank you, Trustee Joseph. Trustee Domingue.
Again, congratulations to Ellen Clark and her presentation by the treasurer. Wish you the best as of this Friday. Enjoy retirement. To the general from the base, thanks for being here and providing all the great information, and look forward to communicating with you more, finding out things at the base. And also welcome to Director Bassett, who is now in back listening to our lovely meetings. And if you need anything, like I stated today, give me a call anytime, sir. Thank you.
Treasurer Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Want to thank General Mammon and the members of the Selfridge Air National Guard Base Community Council, who were not only residents but also business owners, for coming out in support of him. I do want to thank you, Kevin, for accepting my invitation to attend and represent Senator Peters. We've had many experiences in talking about Selfridge and the different ways that it's connected, both to education especially. And as you know, I've been doing a lot of touring of tech colleges this year. And I hope that you come back and do a presentation, somewhat like we saw today. And when you do, some of the things that we've talked about that maybe you could share with the board and the public would be, there is something they were talking about, some research projects that are here at the college level on the PFAS specifically. Also, I think there needs to be a little bit better information on the Department of Defense jobs and residents locally here in the area, because I have a lot of people who work at Selfridge and at the Department of Defense that actually live in my neighborhood, but I don't know if there's any data or information on that, and that would be very helpful. I do also want to, yeah, I think I did that. So I also want to address the question about the JC media cost at the clerk's office. I suggest maybe a social media policy would be a long-term solution. Maybe that would be something I would suggest to the supervisor's office. There is nothing that in looking at those at the bill run and looking at the invoices on that, it does not appear to be anything illegal. However, it is coming close to the $5,000 mark since that, and so it will have to come to the board at that point if it does go over that. It was started, I know, before we had anybody who had was in doing a social media on behalf of the township. That social media department, the person doing the social media, I have to give them kudos for finding a way to control that with a township email, which is kind of new and I didn't know possible. And so that it may be a part of the social media policy, is just requiring it to be used through a township email being used. And also, there was something about, again, there seems to be confusion, and I know that we talked about this in length at the during the budget process. Chesterfield Township had about $11 million in basically our savings account. The board did spend some of that, portion of that, and that would be approximately $3 million. And so I believe we discussed that. That does not mean that the township is $3 million in the red, and that's a little bit different. So other than that, I want to wish everybody a good night, and thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you, Treasurer Elliott. Wow, 7 months as an appointed supervisor, and man, yeah, thank you, Kevin, for looking down. This just gets better every meeting. It just doesn't end, and I don't know why. I really don't know why. 7 months, and I've addressed problems here that have been historical. Some of them in previous terms. They've been fixed, or we've changed direction. I used terms at the last board meeting and enhanced them here: culture, opportunity, and change. Names were used. When you have an opportunity based on a retirement, you change direction and you take a look at it and see how you can improve it. And that's what we do here. I don't know what previous boards did prior to my appointment, but I assume they did the same thing. The coffee table math, the Barney Fife investigation, by whatever information gets leaked out of the building here about where TVs go, good luck. You have to do investigation, just ask. But that information seems to come from different sources that like maybe want to twist it for their own personal gain or interest. Again, amazing. It just continues to astound me sitting in this role. This is about leadership. This is about leadership and taking charge and being responsible. As someone had said, we don't hemorrhage money. Again, the narrative of being in a deficit. We're using taxpayers' money to run this township and provide services to the residents to the best possible way that we can, and that will continue. There's an opportunity to take a culture change here and move towards technology and move towards improvement and move towards accountability. And we're doing that. We're doing it on a daily basis, and we'll continue to do it. The discussion on Facebook, the discussion of whose pages. We have an IT department, we have a social media staff that can manage it, but that page has been up long before I got here. And to all of a sudden take issue with it is disingenuous. Anybody can put an agenda item on, and if that needs to be addressed, we can do that. Comments about the part-time staff and the current situation with the fire department. I have no clue what you're talking about. That fire department is running flawlessly, has the best equipment, and it operates within standards. County standards, professional standards. There's not a staffing issue. In fact, data, response is based on data. I'm not sure, and as Trustee Joseph said, we're very familiar with Troy. And we'd be very fortunate to model after them, which in certain elements we have. It provides the best protection for the residents. And again, as Trustee Joseph indicated, when I took over as Public Safety Director, there was one part-time volunteer fireman. Current staffing is over 10. We have 12 in the interview. And to speak to the reimbursement of the employee, that is a benefit that we offer them to attract qualified candidates. It truly is. And we get qualified candidates, and it benefits this township. The model that we instituted, the previous board instituted, is successful and will continue to be so, and we'll continue to support that. I think everybody here will continue to support that. I don't know what the current situation, if that's a negative connotation or if that's just a statement. I don't know what political blackmail is. I'm not a politician. Never professed to be, never aspired to be. I was a public safety director that thought I could provide a service to this township, and when asked, I applied to be appointed to this job, and I'm learning. The politics that gets thrown into, I don't even call it politics because it's not politics. Politics is something that somebody in Washington, D.C. does. Here, this is fodder. Again, I'm not sure how to respond to the qualified expert part. Many of them I know carry a briefcase and they don't live here. I know he doesn't carry a briefcase, he's got a cardboard box, but he I consider an expert. We have to continue. No, our attorney.
Jeez, David, thanks. I pointed your way. I'm not sure where to take that, because whether it's Platte Moran, whether it's
any other vendor that we sit down with, they all are contracted to come in and they are recognized experts in their field. And that's what I thought we do, much like Enterprise. And that's, again, as I said, that's a carryover, that discussion was a carryover from public safety time. Again, to benefit the township and to make sure that we were cost effective. So I want to continue to do that. I'm not trying to, whether they live here or not, I'm not trying to bring the most qualified presentation to the township board as I possibly can. Last thing, as I said last time, we have a police officer, Kyle LeBeau, who is in the hospital struggling still. And I would hope that the residents and also all the board members I know continue to keep him in your prayers and wish him the best of recovery that's possible. So, with that being said, I will take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Trustee Anderson, supported by Trustee Demink. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned at 10:40.